Have you ever questioned whether reality is truly what it seems? Across the ancient world, from the temples of Egypt to the mountains of Tibet, from the scrolls of Greece to the mandalas of India, one idea returns again and again, that the universe is not made of matter, but of mind. The Egyptians called it the heart of Thoth. The Greeks named it Nous, the divine intellect. In the Vedic texts of India, it appears as Brahman, consciousness as the source of all. Even the Mayans believed the cosmos was dreamt by Hunabku, the supreme creator. All these cultures, separated by oceans and time, converged on the same truth. Reality is a projection, and the projector is consciousness itself. In 1900, physicist Max Planck, father of quantum theory, confirmed what mystics had whispered for centuries. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. Today we call it the principle of mentalism, the first law of Hermetic philosophy. But what does that mean for you? It means your thoughts are not small. It means your attention is not passive. It means the universe bends ever so subtly to the shape of your mind. And if that's true, then the power to change your world begins not out there but in here. If you're ready to explore that mystery, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. I'm taking you through the Hermetic principles, one by one, no fluff, no superstition, just the deep logic of ancient wisdom meeting the edge of modern science. Let's begin. The first law, the dream of the mind. If you could trace the entire universe back to its origin, not just planets or stars, but thoughts, emotions, and even the laws of physics, what would you find? According to the ancient Hermetic teachings, the answer is simple, yet radically profound. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This is not poetry, it's a principle. And it's the first and foundational law of Hermetic philosophy. The Egyptians understood this. In the mystery schools of Kemet, they spoke of Thoth, the god of wisdom, who shaped reality through thought alone. To them, creation didn't begin with an explosion, it began with intention. In ancient India, the Vedas describe Brahman, the ultimate reality, as consciousness itself. The world we live in, they taught, is Maya projection of mind, not matter. Across the ocean, the Mayans believed that Hunabku, the source of all things, dreamed the cosmos into being. And in Greece, Plato taught that the physical world is merely a shadow of the ideal, intangible forms that exist within the mind. It's astonishing how civilizations that never met each other arrived at the same conclusion. Consciousness is not a product of the universe. The universe is a product of consciousness. Fast forward to the 20th century. Max Planck, one of the fathers of quantum physics, wrote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." In other words, science, after centuries of chasing atoms, landed right back where the ancients began. Let's break that down. If the universe is mental in nature, then your thoughts are not private echoes inside your head. They are part of the fabric of reality. Every belief, every image, every expectation casts a ripple across the mental field we call the cosmos. That means your mind isn't a bystander. It's a creative force. And there's more. In the famous double-slit experiment, a particle like an electron behaves one way when unobserved, and another way when someone is watching. When left alone, it acts like a wave spread across space. But when observed, it chooses a path. It behaves like a particle. That one shift just observing changes reality. The observer affects the observed. Now think about that in your own life. When you focus your mind, when you bring attention to something, you're not just witnessing the world, you're shaping it. Your attention collapses possibility into form. This isn't magical thinking, it's physics. And it echoes the Hermetic law of mentalism, what the ancients knew without microscopes or equations. But if this is true, if reality really is shaped by the mind, why doesn't it feel like that? Why do we so often feel powerless, stuck, or disconnected? The answer lies in how we use our minds. In today's world, our mental energy is fractured or distracted. Notifications, social media, advertising, they all compete for our attention. And attention, as Hermeticists understood, is the power source of creation. When scattered, it's weak. But when focused, it's fire. Meditation, mindfulness, and intentional thought aren't just wellness trends, they are ancient technologies for reclaiming creative power. The mind is not meant to be a constant consumer of noise. It's designed to generate, to imagine, to build reality from the inside out. And here's where this becomes personal. Every time you think, I can't do this, or I'm not enough, you're programming your field. You're shaping outcomes before they happen. But when you shift that inner voice, when you consciously choose your thoughts, beliefs, and focus, you're using the first law. You're practicing mentalism, whether you call it that or not. This is why the Hermetic teachings were hidden for so long. Not because they're complex, but because they're powerful. If enough people remembered that their mind was a creative instrument, not a passive observer, the world would look very different. So what's the takeaway? Reality isn't just happening to you, it's happening through you. The same way ancient priests shaped temples with intention, you shape your life with thought. If that feels overwhelming, start small. Start by observing your own mind. Ask, what stories am I telling myself? What assumptions do I live by? What possibilities have I shut down without even testing them? Because the universe is not just listening, it's mirroring, and the clearer your mind becomes, the clearer your world gets. If you found value in this idea, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're going deeper into each Hermetic principle one layer at a time. Ancient wisdom, modern relevance, no fluff. You have the power to think differently. When you do, everything begins to shift, because the dream is not out there, it's in here, and it's yours to shape. The first mirror. The thought that forms worlds. Stand still for a moment and ask yourself a simple question. What if your thoughts do not simply reflect the world around you, but actually shape it? This idea is not a modern invention. It is a timeless insight that has echoed through the corridors of many ancient civilizations. From the sacred chambers of Egypt to the remote monasteries of Tibet, from the philosophy of ancient Greece to the wisdom of the Hindu Vedas, one core belief keeps returning. Thought precedes form. Mind gives birth to matter. In ancient Egypt, this truth was symbolized by Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. He did not just record creation, he spoke it into existence. For the Egyptians, thought and word were the original creative forces. The world began, not with light, but with logos, divine intelligence, expressing itself through intentional thought. The ancient Chinese spoke of the Tao, the unseen force that moves through all things. While the Tao cannot be grasped intellectually, it is said to shape the world through the balance of opposites, yin and yang. Harmony in this view emerges not from force, but from awareness. Consciousness, not brute energy, orders the world. In the Upanishads of India, we are told that the self-Atman is identical with the source of all reality, Brahman. It is through thought that the illusion of separation arises. The yogi does not escape the world but sees through it, understanding that what we call reality is, in fact, the projection of inner patterns. Even the ancient Mayans believed the world was dreamed into being by the mind of the god Hunabku. The cosmos was not built like a machine, it was dreamed like a vision, fluid, conscious, alive. Fast forward to the teachings of Plato. He proposed that the physical world is merely a shadow, a pale reflection of a higher reality composed of ideas, perfect forms that exist in the realm of mind. And measure is shaped first by unseen blueprints that cannot be weighed, but can be known through reason and contemplation. These insights were not guesses. They were conclusions drawn by civilizations that studied the inner world as deeply as we now study the outer one. And they all point to the same principle. The mind does not live in the world. The world lives in the mind. Today, modern science is catching up. In quantum physics, the role of the observer is central. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed. When left alone, they act like waves spread out, undefined. But when someone measures them, they collapse into particles specific, located, real. In simple terms, consciousness does not just watch reality, it changes it. Physicist John Wheeler once said, "No phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon." He meant that without observation there is no event, no reality. The universe waits for a witness. This is not science fiction. It's experimental data. Your mind is not a passive receiver. It's a co-author of experience. And every thought you entertain, every belief you reinforce, every mental picture you hold has an effect. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that thoughts are not invisible. They are causal. What you dwell on is what you energize. What you imagine becomes the blueprint for what you live. If you think the world is hostile, you will unconsciously filter out everything that contradicts that belief. Your brain will reinforce the image you hold. Your emotions will follow. Your actions will respond. And eventually your life will resemble the thought that started it all. This is not a magical process. It is neurological and psychological. But it is also spiritual. Because if your thoughts form the world, then mastery of thought is not just self-improvement, it is world building. The Hermeticists understood this. They called it mentalism, the first principle. Everything begins in the mind. Therefore, to change the world, one must first change the inner world. The mirror is not on the wall, it's in your mind. And it reflects not what is but what you believe is possible. This is why ancient sages emphasized inner stillness. They knew that a restless mind produces a distorted mirror. But a focused, centered mind reflects reality clearly and can shape it with intention. So here's your challenge. Do not believe everything you think. Examine your inner dialogue. Become conscious of your unconscious programming, because if you do not direct your thoughts, someone or something else will. You are not born to be a passive consumer of reality. You're born to be a conscious creator of it. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are exploring each Hermetic law with precision, clarity, and depth, bringing ancient truth into the light of modern consciousness. The world is not waiting for someone else to change it. It is waiting for you to wake up to your own power. The mirror is before you. Now ask yourself, what are you creating? The lost fire, the distraction of the age in every ancient civilization. Fire held sacred meaning, not just as a source of warmth or light, but as a symbol of divine energy, of consciousness itself. The Greeks worshipped Prometheus, the titan who brought fire to humanity. The Hindus revered Agni, the god of flame, as the bridge between mortals and the divine. In ancient Persia, Zoroastrians tended eternal flames in their temples, believing that fire was the purest of all elements and the visible presence of truth. But the fire they honored was never only physical. It was mental. It was focus. It was intention. Today that fire is flickering. Not because it has been extinguished, but because it has been scattered. We live in an era unlike any before. One where the most valuable commodity is not gold, oil, or even information, but attention. And whoever controls your attention controls your reality. Think about it. Every minute your phone buzzes, your feeds refresh, your mind is drawn into an endless stream of headlines, images, arguments, and advertisements. You are not merely observing this flow, you are being shaped by it. The Hermeticists understood this centuries ago. They taught that attention is the gateway to creation. That which you focus on grows. That which you ignore fades. The mind, they said, is like a lens. When directed with precision, it can ignite transformation. When left unfocused, it burns nothing. This is not philosophical theory. It is neurological fact. Modern cognitive science confirms that sustained attention alters the structure of the brain. The more we focus on something, the more neural pathways we build to support it. Concentration is not just a mental skill, it is a biological power. And yet our world is designed to break that power. Studies show that the average person's attention span has dropped to mere seconds. Constant notifications and information overload have reshaped our brains, making deep thought and long-term memory harder to sustain. We skim, we scroll, we consume, but we rarely create. Ancient cultures would have seen this not just as a social problem, but as a spiritual crisis. In Buddhist traditions, the ability to hold sustained awareness was seen as a path to enlightenment. In early Christian mysticism, desert monks withdrew from cities not to escape the world, but to protect the mind from being diluted by it. In the Taoist practice of inner alchemy, focus was essential to refining the spirit. Distraction was not seen as trivial, it was seen as dangerous. Because to be distracted is to be divided. And a divided mind cannot create, it can only react. Let us bring this back to Hermeticism. If the universe is mental, as the first principle states, and the mind is the tool of creation, then whatever weakens the mind, weakens your creative power. Distraction is not harmless. It is theft. It steals your clarity. It steals your time. Most importantly, it steals your will. And will is the highest force in Hermetic thought. More than desire. More than emotion. Will is directed consciousness, the fire behind every act of manifestation. So ask yourself, when was the last time you focused deeply on one task, one idea, one vision, without interruption? When was the last time you sat in silence, not as escape, but as preparation? Because that is what the ancients did. They trained their minds like warriors trained their bodies. They fasted from noise. They withdrew from chaos. Not because they were weak, but because they understood that only a still mind can shape a moving world. In our time, that discipline has been lost. But it can be reclaimed. And the first step is awareness. Awareness of what steals your attention. Awareness of what fragments your inner fire. Awareness of how much energy is being spent on things that do not nourish your spirit or support your purpose. From there, you begin to choose differently. You choose to turn off what does not serve you. You choose silence over stimulation. You choose depth over speed. You choose presence over performance. Because the power of the mind is not in how much it can consume, but in how clearly it can create. Clarity is born in stillness. If you are ready to reclaim your fire, to break the spell of distraction, and return to the path of conscious creations, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is more than philosophy. It is practice. It is power. It is the return of attention as sacred. The modern world is not going to stop distracting you, but you can choose to stop chasing it. And in that choice, something awakens. Something ancient. Something real. You remember who you are. Not a product of your environment, but a sculptor of it. Not a victim of your thoughts, but the fire that fuels them. This is the fire the ancients tended. Now it is your turn. Tend it well. The shadow garden. The subconscious as architect. What if the life you are living is not the product of your conscious choices, but the outcome of a deeper script? One written without your awareness? Welcome to the domain of the subconscious mind, the hidden architect, the invisible gardener. The place within you where beliefs are born, behaviors take root, and reality quietly forms. Most people believe they are in full control of their lives. They point to goals, decisions, and habits as evidence. But modern psychology and ancient wisdom alike suggest something far more humbling. Up to 95% of our thoughts, reactions, and behaviors are driven not by conscious intention, but by unconscious programming. Carl Jung called the subconscious the shadow, not because it is evil, but because it is unseen. What remains unseen remains unexamined. And what is unexamined shapes us more than we realize. Hermeticism teaches that the universe is mental. And if that is true, then the subconscious is not just personal, it is cosmic. It is a bridge between the individual and the infinite. What you plant there grows not just in your own life, but into the field of reality itself. Ancient cultures knew this. In Egypt, initiates underwent rituals not to learn new information, but to cleanse the hidden self of illusions. In the temple of Luxor, every wall was a psychological mirror. Symbols and gods were not worshipped, they were engaged as parts of the inner world. In India, yogic psychology divided the mind into layers. Manusa, thinking mind. Buddhi, the discerning mind. In Chitta, the deep subconscious, where impressions known as samskars live. These impressions, formed through experience, become patterns. These patterns become karma. In Buddhism, the subconscious is known as the storehouse consciousness alavinana. It contains all seeds of thought and emotion which ripen into suffering or liberation depending on awareness. Even in the Americas, the Tao text taught that every human lives inside a dream, not a metaphorical one, but a literal perception constructed by the subconscious. To awaken is to reclaim authorship over that dream. Now science adds its voice. Studies in neuroscience reveal that the subconscious processes information up to 1 million times faster than the conscious mind. It records everything, from childhood moments to passing expressions, even when you are not aware, and it does not forget. More importantly, it does not think, it reacts, it obeys, it does not reason, it believes, which means it is programmable. If you were told as a child that you were not good enough, not lovable, or not capable, that message was not just heard, it was embedded. It became part of your operating system. And unless you examine it, you will live by its heaven if you consciously reject it. This is why people sabotage opportunities, why they repeat the same toxic relationships, why they hit the same emotional walls again and again. The problem is not intention. The problem is the subconscious blueprint, the shadow garden. The good news is that it can be reprogrammed, but not by force, not by pretending. The subconscious does not respond to logic, responds to repetition, emotion, visualization, symbol. And this is where ancient practice meets modern application. Affirmations, for example, are not just positive thinking. They are reprogramming tools if used with feeling and consistency. Visualization is not imagination, it is rehearsal. When done with full sensory engagement, it creates new neurological pathways, new energetic imprints, and meditation. It is the gateway. When the conscious mind quiets, the doors to the subconscious open. Old patterns rise to the surface, to haunt you but to be seen. And once seen, they can be released. This is why inner work is not just self-help, it is self-remastery. It is the process of becoming the architect of your own experience. Think of the subconscious as a fertile garden. Whatever is planted there grows. If you do not choose the seeds, the world will choose for you through media, trauma, repetition, and inherited beliefs. But if you do choose, you can cultivate peace, strength, worth, vision. It takes effort, patience, and deep honesty. Formative. You begin to respond rather than react. You begin to feel worthy without reason. You begin to attract not what you want, but what you have become. And slowly, the world outside begins to reflect the world within. That is not mysticism. That is the first Hermetic law in action. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are mapping the mind one layer at a time, bringing light into the subconscious, not to control it, but to collaborate with it. Your life is not random. Your story is not fixed, but it will only change when you change the story behind it. The garden is waiting. What will you plant? The sacred stillness. The return to the center. What if the greatest power you could ever access is found not in motion, but in stillness? It may sound counterintuitive in an age that worships speed, noise, and endless productivity, but every ancient tradition worth remembering speaks of one universal truth. Before anything can be created in the outer world, it must be mastered in the inner world, and mastery begins with silence. In Hermeticism, the mind is seen not as a chaotic swirl of thoughts, but as a tool precise, focused, and deeply creative. But like any tool, it requires sharpening. And sharpening the mind does not come from constant stimulation. It comes from stillness. The sages of ancient Egypt practiced forms of contemplative prayer in the temples of Karnak and Luxor, believing that the gods could only speak to a silent mind. The Vedic rishis of India entered deep states of dhyana, using meditation to still the fluctuations of thought and reach unity with the divine self, Atman. In Taoism, stillness is considered the natural state of being, the path back to the Tao, the origin and destination of all things. Across continents and cultures, silence was not seen as emptiness. It was seen as fullness. It was not the absence of sound. It was the presence of something deeper. And science, once again, begins to catch up. Neuroscientific studies show that meditation rewires the brain. It reduces stress, enhances memory, and increases focus. But more importantly, it activates parts of the brain associated with self-awareness and emotional regulation. Stillness does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. When the mind is scattered, it reacts. But when the mind is still, it chooses. Stillness is the return to the center, the sacred point within you, where all potential exists, but nothing is yet determined. It is the eye of the storm. It is the place from which true creation begins. In Hermetic thought, this is where the will resides. Will is not the same as desire. Desire fluctuates. It wants. It fears. It is based on lack. Will, on the other hand, is stable. It is rooted in presence. It is the quiet force that shapes reality with precision and purpose. When you enter stillness, you meet your will. And from there, you begin to act not out of habit or reaction, but from clarity. Imagine a magnifying glass under the sun. When moved constantly, it does nothing. But when held still, it concentrates the light into a beam so intense, it can ignite fire. Your mind is the same. Without stillness, it cannot focus. Without focus, it cannot transform. This is why modern life feels so exhausting. We are constantly moving, thinking, reacting, but we are rarely centered. And so, even with all our technology, information, and speed, we feel scattered, unfulfilled, and disconnected. The solution is not to escape the world. The solution is to return to the center within it. The ancient Stoics practiced this daily. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, would begin each morning with a form of reflection and meditation, grounding himself before entering the chaos of the empire. He knew that without inner stillness, no outer success could bring peace. Likewise, the early Christian mystics withdrew to the desert, not to hide but to listen. In the silence of sand and stars, they discovered the voice of the divine was not loud, it was subtle. Only the quiet could hear it. This same voice, this same stillness, is available to you now. All it takes is a decision to pause, to stop seeking more and start seeing what already is. Stillness is not a retreat, it is a return. A return to the source of your thoughts. A return to the space between stimulus and response. A return to the place where you choose who you are becoming. If you are new to this practice, start small. Sit for 5 minutes. Focus on your breath. Let thoughts rise and fall without chasing them. With time, your mind will stop fighting silence and start recognizing it as home. And once it does, something powerful happens. Your creativity sharpens, your intuition strengthens, your sense of self expands beyond labels and roles. Begin to feel, not just think but feel, that you are the still point at the center of all motion. This is the sacred stillness the ancients honored, not as an escape from life, but as the foundation for living it with intention. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, we are restoring a forgotten art, the art of returning to ourselves in a world that constantly pulls us away. Stillness is not the absence of life. It is the beginning of conscious life. The path back to the center begins the moment you choose to stop and listen. The inner temple, becoming the creator again. There is a moment in every spiritual tradition where the seeker stops looking outward and turns inward, not to escape the world, but to find the source of it. That turning point is the return to the inner temple. The Hermetic teachings tell us that the universe is mental, that everything we experience is a projection from within. But what most forget is that the greatest altar is not in the stars or in some distant realm. It is inside you, and it is always active. The Egyptians called this sacred center the heart of the Katha, spiritual double that mirrored a person's divine essence. The Greeks believed in the nous, the divine intellect within every human, linking them to the eternal forms. In the Upanishads of India, the Atman, the deepest self, is said to be the seat of creation, not just within the individual, but is identical to the cosmic source, Brahman. Each of these cultures taught the same core idea. The human being is not merely a receiver of reality, but a generator of it. But if that is true, then why do so many people feel powerless? Why do most wake up each day reacting to events rather than shaping them? The answer lies in forgetting. We've forgotten the temple. We have forgotten the throne. And most importantly, we have forgotten that we are the ones who sit upon it. The modern world teaches us to look outside for answers, validation, and control. It tells us that power lies in achievement, wealth, or influence. But ancient wisdom says otherwise. Real power, the kind that bends reality, comes from inner alignment. Hermeticism calls this alignment the harmony between the conscious, subconscious, and the universal mind. When your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are unified, You become a conduit for divine intelligence. You stop trying to control the outer world and begin creating from the inside out. This is not metaphor. It is structure. Every thought you think is an instruction sent to the subconscious. Every emotion you feel intensifies that instruction, and every belief you carry filters the energy that passes through you. Together, they build your reality. If your inner temple is filled with confusion, fear, or doubt, then your external world will mirror that. But if it is filled with clarity, intention, and awareness, your life begins to shift without force, without resistance. The ancient Taoists knew this. They taught that the sage does not act against the world, but aligns with the Tao, the flow of universal order. In doing so, his actions become effortless. Results follow intention, not effort. In early Christian mysticism, the kingdom of heaven was not described as a far-off place, but as something within you. The temple was never made of stone. It was always the purified heart. Even the Mayans believed that creation began from within the heart of the divine. And they mapped time itself as a spiritual journey in a calendar, tracking the cycles of consciousness, not just the stars. All these traditions point to the same conclusion. You are not separate from the creative source. You are a branch of it. And when you remember this, you reclaim your role not as victim, not as observer, but as creator. But creation requires responsibility. You must become conscious of your thoughts. You must choose your beliefs. You must observe your emotions without being ruled by them. The inner temple is not passive. It is disciplined. Sacred space requires sacred practice. This is why the ancients trained. They fasted, meditated, visualized, not to impress the gods, but to purify their own signal. It's because the clearer the signal, the purer the creation. The Hermetic principle of correspondence says, as within, so without. That is not a suggestion. It is a law. Your inner state is not private. It is projected. The way you speak to yourself becomes the tone of your relationships. The way you treat your body becomes the filter of your energy. The way you manage your focus becomes the scope of your power. Nothing is neutral in the inner temple. Every thought is a prayer. Every emotion is a seed. Every intention is a tool. So the question is not whether you are creating, you are. The question is, are you creating consciously? To return to the inner temple is to take back the throne. It is to rise each morning and ask, what will I plant today? What energy will I carry? What version of myself will I choose to express? Because that choice, repeated daily, becomes your life. If this truth resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is not just content, it is a path. Each video is a doorway back into yourself. Ancient laws, modern clarity, no fluff. You are the creator. Not someday, not after you learn more. Right now, the temple is not lost. It is waiting, and the key to it has always been in your hands.